The reservation was made 3 weeks ago. Sloane Whitfield had called the Wren table on a Tuesday morning, Miles still eating cereal at the kitchen counter, his spoon making lazy circles in the milk. "Table for 3, please. October 14th, 7 o'clock. It's my son's birthday." The woman on the phone had said, "How lovely. We'll make it special." Sloane had believed her. She believed a lot of things back then. Now it was 7:22 p.m. on October 14th, and the table was set for 3. The balloon Miles had picked out himself, blue, shaped like a T-Rex, was tied to the empty chair. The chair with no person in it. The chair that belonged to Derek. Miles was wearing the navy flannel shirt Sloane had ironed last night. His hair was combed back, one stubborn piece curling up at the crown no matter what she did. And I sat perfectly straight, hands folded on the table, eyes fixed on the front door of the restaurant, with the kind of patience that only children have. The kind that doesn't know yet it might be wasted. "Is Daddy almost here?" "He's on his way, baby." Sloane looked at her phone under the table. 17 missed calls, 0 replies. The restaurant was warm and quiet, the way Brooklyn Heights restaurants always were on Friday evenings, candlelit and unhurried, East River glittering through the tall windows, the distant skyline of Manhattan burning gold in the distance. Every other table was full. Couples, families, people who had shown up for each other. At 7:30, the waiter brought out the cake. Chocolate with green frosting dinosaurs. Miles had spent 4 minutes at the bakery choosing which one. He'd chosen the one with the biggest teeth. "Should we wait?" the waiter asked softly, looking between Sloane and the empty chair. "No," Sloane said. "We don't need to wait." She lit the 5 candles herself. Miles leaned forward, cheeks puffed, the whole small weight of his hope concentrated in one breath. He blew them all out at once. The restaurant applauded. Sloane clapped and smiled and took the photo and sent it to Derek. Delivered. No read receipt. She was already putting the phone back in her purse when she glanced toward the far corner of the room. And her hands went completely still. Derek was already here. He just wasn't at their table. He was sitting at the corner table by the window. The one with the low lighting and the view of the bridge. The one couples asked for when they wanted to be private. And Sloane knew because she had asked for it herself 7 years ago, the first time Derek brought her here. "That table," she had said, pointing. "The one that feels like a secret." He had laughed and asked the host, and they had gotten it. Tonight, someone else was sitting across from him. A woman in a dark dress, blonde hair swept to one side, one hand resting on the table close to his. Not touching, just close. The way you sit near someone when touching is already understood. Derek was leaning toward her, not much, just slightly, the way the body moves toward the warmth without being told to. Then he kissed her hand. It was a small gesture, brief, but unhurried. And Sloane understood, watching it, that this was not the first time. People do not kiss hands that way the first time. That gesture belonged to a history she had not been shown. Miles was saying something about the frosting dinosaur. Sloane turned back to him, smiled, answered. She did not know what she said. She moved through the next 4 minutes on a layer of herself she didn't know she had. The layer that functions when the real self goes somewhere quiet to absorb a shock. Then Derek looked up. Their eyes met across the restaurant. He went completely still. 3 full seconds. Then his expression arranged itself into something controlled. The face he wore in boardrooms when things weren't going well, but he needed the room to believe they were. He stood up, excused himself from the woman, walked toward Sloane's table. "Slow," He stopped, cleared his throat. I can explain. Sit down, she said. Her voice was quiet, absolutely level. Miles is eating his birthday cake. You're going to sit down, and then you're going to sing happy birthday. And you are not going to make this night about anything other than your son. Are we clear? A beat. He looked at her like he was looking for something. Anger, tears, something to manage. She gave him nothing. He sat down. Miles looked up, eyes lighting like candles themselves. Dad, you made it. Derek's smile came a half-second late. Yeah, buddy, he said. I made it. Sloane watched her son's face, pure, uncomplicated joy, and filed it carefully away from the other things she was feeling. She picked up her fork. She ate cake. She asked Miles which dinosaur he wanted to take home. She did not look at the corner table again, but she had already memorized everything. I already knew, Sloane said. I've known since July. The color drained from Derek's face. Meant they were standing in the hallway of their apartment, Miles asleep down the hall, the city outside the windows doing what the city always did. Burning bright and indifferent. Derek had followed her inside with the energy of a man preparing a speech. He opened his mouth. She spoke first, and the speech collapsed. You knew? He said it like a question, but it wasn't one. You knew and you didn't say anything? I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I said anything. It had started in July. A Tuesday morning, Miles at the counter eating cereal. Derek in the shower, his laptop open on the kitchen island, a notification appearing on the screen before Sloane could look away. Tonight was perfect. P, that was all. 7 words. But 7 words carry weight when they arrive on your husband's laptop at 7 a.m., and from a single initial. She had not opened the email. She had closed the laptop, rinsed her coffee cup, and driven Miles to his summer program. But she had started watching. Not obsessively, not with the frantic, wounded energy of someone hoping to be wrong. Carefully. The way she approached a building before she designed its interior, reading the structure, understanding what was holding it up and what was slowly giving way. She noticed the silenced phone on Friday evenings. The unfamiliar cologne, not his brand, something softer, transferred. The late meetings that appeared on his calendar as single words, ops, strategy, review, no location, no attendees listed. The Instagram account she found by accident, a public profile, a professional woman in marketing, frequent travel posts from cities Derek had visited that same week. Petra Voss. The name on the card she'd once seen on the kitchen counter, face down, that Derek had slipped into his jacket pocket before she could read it fully. She had read it fully. 3 months of watching. 3 months of building a complete picture before touching a single piece of it. Why didn't you just ask me? Derek said. Sloane looked at him. Because men like you don't answer that question honestly when asked directly. They answer it when they're out of options. She picked up her pillow from the bed. You can have the room. I'm sleeping with Miles tonight. She walked down the hall. She didn't slam the door. The soft click was much worse. She found it the next morning. Miles's iPad was on the kitchen counter, plugged in, screen dark. Sloane picked it up to move it out of the way, and the screen came on. A video thumbnail she didn't recognize. 42 minutes of recording from 3 weeks ago. Miles had been in Derek's home office. He did this sometimes. Set up the iPad on a shelf and pressed record because he'd seen Derek take video calls and wanted to pretend he was on one too. Usually, he recorded himself making faces at the bookshelf. Usually, Sloane deleted them and moved on. She pressed play. The angle was crooked, pointed slightly at the ceiling, the edge of the mahogany desk visible in the lower frame. but the audio was clear. Derek's voice first. "I need more time." Then a woman's voice, measured, unhurried, the voice of someone accustomed to being the most composed person in any room. "You don't have more time, Derek. Neil is already asking questions about the quarterly numbers. If you don't restructure the equity before his audit cycle closes, both of us are exposed." "Petra, 31% into my holding entity. You file the transfer before the end of Q4, and then you initiate the divorce. After that, we consolidate the portfolios and you're protected." A silence. Derek's voice again, quieter. "And if I don't?" "Then Neil finds what he's looking for, and you explain it to a federal investigator instead of me." The video ended 40 seconds later when Miles walked back into the frame, picked up the iPad, and started recording himself roaring like a dinosaur. Sloane sat at the kitchen table for a long time. She was not shaking. That surprised her. She had expected her hands to shake. Instead, she felt a strange, cold clarity. The feeling of a room coming into focus. This was not only a betrayal, this was a scheme. And Derek, the man she had watched charm investors and intimidate competitors for 4 years, was not the architect of it. He was the target of it. She saved the video to her private cloud, deleted it from the iPad, set the iPad back on the counter. She opened her Kindle and found her place in the 48 Laws of Power, Law 3. Conceal your intentions. She read it twice. Then she picked up her phone and texted Audrey, "Cancel your morning. I need you." Audrey Tran did not cancel easily. She was the kind of lawyer who had 3 phones and answered all of them. She billed time in 6-minute increments and once told Sloane that the only acceptable reason to reschedule a morning was a natural disaster or a federal subpoena. When Sloane's text came through at 6:47 a.m., Audrey read it, cleared her 9 o'clock, and then replied with 3 words. "Where? What time?" They met at Audrey's office on the 24th floor of a building in Midtown. 2 Starbucks cups on the conference table, the audio from Miles's iPad playing through Sloane's phone, while Audrey listened with her arms crossed and her expression going very, very still. When the recording ended, Audrey sat in silence for 11 seconds. Sloane counted. "That's not a divorce case," Audrey finally said. "That's a corporate fraud case wearing a divorce case as a coat." "I know. We need someone inside Callaway Capital." "I know that too." Sloane opened her bag and slid a printed email across the table. "He already contacted you." The email had arrived in Audrey's inbox at 11:54 the previous night. Sender, N. Dunbar. Subject line, regarding Callaway Capital, urgent and confidential. Merbati. 4 sentences asking for a meeting. Audrey had assumed it was a prospective client she hadn't placed yet. She hadn't placed it because she hadn't known, until this moment, who Neil Dunbar was. They met him the following afternoon at a coffee shop in Tribeca. Small, no cameras near the door. The kind of place where the ambient noise swallows conversation. Neil Dunbar arrived 5 minutes early. He was already seated back to the wall, watching the entrance. A man who had been looking over his shoulder for a while. "6 months ago," he said without greeting, "Petra Voss came to me with documentation of a transaction I handled in 2019. Nothing criminal, but interpretable. She made clear what she wanted in exchange for her silence. Which was my cooperation, my silence on the equity restructuring, and my authorization codes for the Q4 audit cycle." He placed a folder on the table. 3 months of internal emails, wire transfers, shell company registrations in Delaware and the Cayman Islands. "Why come forward now?" Sloane asked. Neil looked at her directly. Because I watched what she did to the last two men who trusted her. And because I have a daughter your age. He pushed the folder an inch closer. And because some things are just wrong. The call came that evening. Sloane was putting Miles to bed, reading him the dinosaur book for the fourth night in a row, because Miles believed that if something was good, once it was good forever. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. The voicemail said, "Sloane, this is Greta Calloway. I think it's time we spoke honestly, and I'll be home tomorrow evening. Come at 6. Sloane had spent 4 years being mildly afraid of Greta Calloway. The woman was precise, direct, and sparing with warmth in ways that could easily be mistaken for coldness. She wore her silver hair short and her opinions stated plainly. She had shaken Sloane's hand at their first meeting and said, "Derek speaks highly of you. Let's see if he's accurate." She was not a villain. She was simply a woman who did not perform softness she didn't feel. And Sloane had always interpreted that as disapproval. She arrived at the Upper East Side brownstone at 6 the next evening. The house was quiet and ordered. Books on every surface. A fireplace with low flames. Greta was standing at the window with a cup of tea, and she didn't turn around immediately, the way people don't when they're deciding exactly what to say. "I never liked Petra Voss," she began. Not the first time Derek mentioned her. Not the second time. There's a kind of intelligence that exists entirely in service of acquisition. She had that kind. She looked at every room the way an appraiser looks at furniture. She turned around. Her face was composed, but not unkind. "I did not raise a good man," she said flatly. "I raised a capable man. There's a difference, and it took me too long to understand which one I had. So I did what I could with what I knew." She crossed to the writing desk, opened the top drawer, set a document in front of Sloane. It was a trust deed dated 4 years ago, 2 weeks before the wedding. Greta had placed the Tribeca penthouse, her gift to Derek, into a co-beneficiary trust, and the second beneficiary, Sloane Whitfield. "You protected me before you even knew me," Sloane said. "I knew enough," Greta replied. "A woman who irons her son's shirt before his birthday dinner knows what matters. Derek has never ironed anything in his life." She poured a second cup of tea and set it in front of Sloane. "There's one more thing. Rowan Mercer called me last week. He's been asking about you." She almost didn't go. Sloane sat in her car outside Mercer's studio for 4 minutes, watching people move on the Soho sidewalk before she got out. The building was a converted cast iron factory, exposed brick, arched windows, afternoon light falling in long rectangles across the entrance. The kind of building that looked like someone had loved it carefully back to life. She pushed open the door. Rowan Mercer was standing at a drafting table with his back to the entrance, studying something. He was tall, slightly rumpled in the way of people who don't notice clothes. Hair silver at the temples in a way that had apparently arrived early and stayed. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and his expression did something she wasn't prepared for. It simply relaxed, the way a face does when it sees something familiar. "Sloane Whitfield," he said. Not this is a surprise. Not it's been a while. Just her name, said like a fact that had always been true. They had met at Cornell in the first week of freshman year, thrown together for an intro design project, a temporary structure meant to be disassembled at the end of the semester. Rowan had argued for using only reclaimed materials. Sloane had argued for clean lines, and they had built something better than either version alone. And from that had come 4 years of easy, genuine friendship. Then Derek. Then New York. Then life moving fast in different directions, the way it does when no one is careless, but everyone is busy. "I've been following your work," Rowan said. He moved to the side table and picked up a printed page. A photograph of the Harlow Tower lobby, 2019. The light distribution in the corridor. No one else does that. The way you pull natural light around a corner, it's a specific decision that most designers never consider. You recognized it. I taught you that technique. A small smile. I was hoping you'd remember who to credit. He showed her the proposal without ceremony. A design director position at Mercer's studio, focused on residential and boutique hospitality. Her name had been in the shortlist for 8 months. Before any of this, before the birthday dinner, before the folder of hotel receipts, before everything. "This isn't about what's happening with your marriage," he said. "It was never about that. It's about your work." Sloan looked around the studio. The light, the space, the drafting tables covered in real work. She felt something unfamiliar move through her chest. Something like recognition. "When do you need an answer?" she asked. "Whenever you're ready," he said. "I've waited this long." The filing arrived on a Monday morning. Audrey called at 8:14 a.m. while Sloan was dropping Miles at school, her voice carrying the specific flatness of a lawyer who has read something infuriating and is choosing not to transmit that directly. "Come to the office. Don't stop for coffee." "I have coffee." The document was 42 pages. Petra Voss's legal team, a firm in Midtown whose letterhead alone cost more than most people's monthly rent, had filed a civil action claiming Petra was a de facto strategic partner of Callaway Capital, entitled to 15% equity based on a verbal agreement supported by written communications. They had included exhibits, emails, calendar invites, a consulting framework document bearing Derek's signature. "She prepared this months ago," Audrey said. "This is not a reaction. This is a plan." Attached to the main filing was a secondary document, a petition requesting temporary asset freeze on all Callaway Capital equity pending resolution of the partnership dispute. If granted, Derek would lose operational control of his own company while the case worked through the court system. It could take 18 months. In that window, Petra's holding entity in Delaware could maneuver freely. "She's trying to freeze the board out before anyone can vote against her," Sloan said. "Correct. And she filed it before we filed the divorce petition, which means she gets to set the narrative first." Sloan stared at the document. Outside the office window, Midtown moved at its usual pace. Taxis, pedestrians, the ordinary machinery of a city that did not pause for personal catastrophe. She had spent her adult life in this city. She had designed spaces for people to live in it. And now she was sitting in a lawyer's office reading a 42-page document that was written specifically to take something from her. "What do we need?" she asked. 3 things. Evidence the consulting agreement was fabricated or obtained under duress. Evidence the Delaware entity is a fraud vehicle. And a witness. Neil Dunbar. If he'll testify, he'll testify. Sloan stood up, moved to the window. "What about Derek? Does he know what she's actually doing?" Audrey looked at her. "That's the question, isn't it?" That afternoon, Sloan sent Derek a single text. "Meet me at the Wren table tonight. The table where you proposed. 6 o'clock. Bring nothing. Come alone." He arrived first, which surprised her. He was already seated when she walked in. Not at the corner table this time, but at the small one near the window where she had once told him she loved him for the first time. He looked like a man who had not slept in 3 days. She sat down, put the filing in front of him, watched his face as he read. It happened on a Wednesday. Not the big dramatic breaking. No screaming. There's no throwing things. Just a Wednesday at 1 a.m. in a West Village apartment she had been in for 11 days. Sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against the refrigerator and her knees pulled to her chest and a cup of tea gone cold in her hands. Miles was asleep. The movers had come on Saturday. The apartment was small, genuinely small, not Manhattan small. 2 bedrooms, galley kitchen, a window in the living room that looked out onto the side wall of the building next door. It smelled like fresh paint and someone else's cleaning products. Miles had declared his room the best room because it had a slanted ceiling he could jump toward without quite touching. Sloane had not told him it was temporary. She didn't know yet if that was true. On the kitchen floor at 1 a.m., she let herself do the things she had not allowed herself to do in front of anyone. She let herself be in the middle of it, the full weight of it. Not the betrayal, that had its own shape and she had already mapped it. But the thing underneath, the years of carefully making herself smaller. The career she had folded up and stored away, because there will be time later. The portfolio she had stopped adding to. The mornings she had watched Derek leave for work and stayed behind, capable, skilled, with a drawer full of pencils she no longer opened, because she had decided that this was the shape of her life now. She had not been forced into that shape. That was the part that hurt the most. She had walked in voluntarily. She cried for a while. There was no one watching, so she let it be what it was. Then she got up, washed her face, and made fresh tea. Opened her laptop. The business plan she had started sketching the week after the Wren table was still open in a tab. Rough notes, placeholder numbers, a name she'd typed, and then immediately second-guessed. Whitfield Design Studio. She read it, made 3 revisions, saved it. Her phone lit up. A text from Rowan at 2:09 a.m. I know it's late. I was reviewing the Kessler sketches you sent. They're beautiful, Sloane. I just wanted you to know that tonight. She sat with that for a moment. Then she typed back, "Thank you for saying that." She paused, then added, "I needed to hear it." She closed the business plan, put her phone face down, and for the first time since October 14th, she slept all the way through until morning. She was standing outside Audrey's building on a Tuesday morning when she noticed the woman, a mid-30s, dark coat, carrying a notebook instead of a phone. An unusual choice. She was leaning against the building's entrance column with the specific, practiced patience of someone who did this for a living. She looked up when Sloane approached. "Ms. Whitfield? My name is Cassidy Moore. I'm an investigative reporter with the Financial Times." Sloane looked at her. "How did you find me here?" "I've been looking for the person with the Callaway Capital documents for 6 weeks. Your lawyer is good at her job, but real estate filings are public record." Cassidy didn't apologize for the approach. "I'm not here to write a marriage story. I'm here because Petra Voss has done this before." They went upstairs. Audrey poured coffee and said nothing for the first 10 minutes. Just listened to Cassidy lay out her research on the conference table like someone assembling a machine. 3 companies in 5 years. Each one a privately held firm controlled by a single founding partner. Each one targeted through a personal relationship. Each one partially hollowed out before the principal understood what was happening. In the 2 previous cases, the founders had settled quietly. No press, no litigation. The damage absorbed in exchange for making the story disappear. Petra had disappeared with them and reappeared elsewhere. Callaway is the first time there's been enough documentary evidence to pursue a full case, Cassidy said. But only if the source is willing to cooperate. What does cooperation look like? Audrey asked. An on-record account, access to the documents. I don't need names beyond Voss and the entity structures. Sloane had been quiet throughout. Now she looked directly at Cassidy. My son's name does not appear anywhere in anything you write. Not his age, not his school, nothing. Agreed. In writing if you want. I want. Cassidy wrote it on a sheet from her notebook and signed it. Old-fashioned, but Sloane appreciated the gesture. After Cassidy left, Audrey sat back and studied Sloane. Once this goes to print, we lose control of the timeline. Courts move differently when the press is watching. Good, Sloane said. Petra has been operating in the dark for 5 years. I don't want to fight her there. She picked up her coat. Darkness is her advantage, not mine. He called on a Thursday night at 10:47. Sloane was at her desk, working through the preliminary plans for a residential project Rowan had assigned her. A brownstone renovation in Carroll Gardens. A couple expecting their first child who wanted the nursery to face east for morning light. She had been thinking about light a lot lately. The way it moved, what it revealed. She looked at Derek's name on her phone for 2 rings, then picked up. He didn't open with an apology or a question about the case or anything she had anticipated. He said, I miss Miles. I don't know how to do this, not seeing him every day. I don't know how to do that. His voice was different. The boardroom coating was gone. Underneath it, he sounded like a person. They met the next afternoon at the park near Miles's school. Miles ran immediately for the climbing structure, the one shaped like a pirate ship, and within 60 seconds was at the top, negotiating a truce between 2 other children about who had arrived at the crow's nest first. Derek and Sloane sat on the bench behind him. I'm not going to ask you to come back, Derek said. He was watching Miles, not her. I know that's not, I'm not going to ask you that. Okay. I just want to understand something. You watched for 3 months. You knew. And you still put Miles to bed every night and made his lunches and took him to swim lessons and didn't fall apart. Of course I didn't fall apart, Sloane said. He's my son. Derek was quiet for a moment. I lost the thread, he said finally. That's the only way I know how to say it. I had everything. A real thing. I had you and Miles, and something real. And I got so deep into building the company that I lost the thread of why I was doing it. And Petra was. She never looked like she needed anything from me. I mistook that for strength. I was wrong about what strength looks like. Sloane said nothing. Let it land. I know this doesn't fix it. No, she agreed. It doesn't. But I need you to know I'm not the same person I was at that table. Miles shouted from the top of the pirate ship. Dad, watch this. He jumped from the 3rd step, landed in the wood chips, threw both arms up. Derek stood up, clapping. Yeah, buddy, that's it. And for one unguarded second, watching his face, Sloane believed him. Not that it changed anything. But she believed him. Neil Dunbar called Audrey at 9:51 on a Friday night. He didn't say much, but he said there had been 2 men outside his building that evening. Standing on the sidewalk across the street, not speaking, just present. The particular kind of present that communicates a message without requiring words. They had been there for 40 minutes. Then they left. She knows, he said. Audrey called Sloane immediately after. They met at Audrey's office at 11 p.m. Audrey still in the clothes she'd been wearing at dinner, Sloane in a coat pulled over her pajamas. Both of them functioning on coffee and the specific adrenaline of a problem requiring immediate solutions. If Neil withdraws, we lose the inside corroboration, Audrey said. The documents alone are strong, but testimony transforms them. He won't withdraw, Sloane said. He's been carrying this for 6 months. He's not afraid of her. He's been choosing the right moment. She called Neil. He answered on the first ring. She told him they were moving up the timeline, that Audrey was filing for protective witness status first thing Monday morning, and that Cassidy Moore's article would publish before the court date, removing Petra's cover before she had time to maneuver. "Are you certain about the reporter?" Neil asked. She signed her commitment in a notebook with a fountain pen. I found that reassuring. A pause. Then, almost nothing, but Sloane caught it. A small exhale that might have been a laugh. All right, Monday. After the call, Sloane sat in the conference room while Audrey drafted the protective filing. The city outside the windows was doing what it always did at midnight. Still lit, still moving, indifferent and magnificent. She opened her laptop to review the Kessler Project measurements for the 3rd time because her hands needed something to do. At 2:17 a.m., Rowan texted, "Still at the studio, working on the Meridian proposal. Can't sleep. You?" "Same," she typed. "Carroll Gardens brownstone, east-facing nursery. Good choice. What's the window dimension?" She sent him the spec sheet. He responded in 4 minutes with a note about the sill depth, a detail she hadn't considered, but was immediately right. They went back and forth for an hour. No mention of Petra, the case, Derek, any of it. Just the work. Just the particular pleasure of thinking through a problem with someone who thinks the same way you do. At 3:30, she closed the laptop and felt not okay, exactly, but steadied. She drove home through empty streets and checked on Miles twice before she finally slept. The article published at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Financial Times. Investigative. Cassidy Moore's byline. The headline was clean and specific. Serial equity scheme targets mid-market private firms. Inside 5 years of calculated fraud. By 6:45, Bloomberg had picked it up. By 8:30, the Wall Street Journal ran a shorter piece citing the FT's reporting. By 10 a.m., the SEC announced it had opened a formal investigation. The name Petra Voss appeared in all 3 publications, with a specific absence of softening language that signals a story the editors have verified exhaustively. Sloane was making Miles's breakfast when Audrey's text arrived. She read it, set her phone down, kept scrambling the eggs. "Moms, you're doing it wrong," Miles said from his chair. "I know how to scramble eggs." "You're going too fast. You have to go slow or they get rubbery." Sloane looked at her son, 5 years old, issuing instructions with complete confidence, and laughed. A real laugh, the sudden kind. "Where did you learn that?" "Miss Patterson at school. We made eggs." "Miss Patterson is right." Sloane slowed down. "Better?" "Much better." She plated his eggs, made his toast, poured his juice, and sat across from him while he ate and talked about the pirate ship at the park and the fact that dinosaurs would have been very good pirates because of their claws. She did not look at Bloomberg. She did not call anyone. She let the morning be what it was, ordinary and quiet, and hers. While 30 blocks away, a financial scandal was rewriting the story of the past 6 months into something that would follow Petra Voss's name for the rest of her professional life. At 11 a.m., Derek called. "You did this," he said. No accusation in it, just acknowledgement. "I provided evidence to a reporter investigating a fraud scheme. Everything I gave her was true." "I know." A long pause. "The board called an emergency session this morning. They're removing Petra's access retroactively. Neil is overseeing the audit himself." "Good." "Sloane." He stopped, started again. "Thank you. I know you didn't do it for me." "No," she said. "I didn't." She ended the call, stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the West Village street below, the bakery opening its awning, a woman walking a dog in a red raincoat, a delivery truck blocking half the lane, while the driver carried boxes with the patient efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 mornings. Ordinary, continuous, still moving forward. She put on her coat and went to work. The second filing arrived on a Friday afternoon. Audrey called at 4:17 and said 4 words before anything else. "Don't react out loud." Then she read the filing. Petra's new legal team, a different firm, more aggressive, the kind with marble lobbies and partners who appeared on cable news, had attached a supplementary motion to the civil case. The motion argued that Sloan Whitfield had willfully exposed a minor child to legal proceedings and media scrutiny by leveraging a recording made without parental consent in a family residence, and requested that the family court review Sloan's primary custody status as a matter of protective concern for the child. "She's using Miles," Sloan said. Her voice was flat. "Yes. She's using my 5-year-old son as a pressure point because she has nothing else left." "Yes." Audrey's voice was steady. "And I need you to hear me when I say this. It's not going to work. It is a tactical filing from a losing position. But I needed you to know before you heard it elsewhere." Sloan was standing in the middle of her living room. Miles was in the next room watching his nature documentary, the one about ocean life, which he was currently obsessed with. And she could hear the narrator describing how a particular species of fish camouflaged itself on the ocean floor to avoid predators. She walked to the doorway, watched him for a moment. He was lying on his stomach, chin in both hands, completely absorbed. Safe, unaware, exactly as he should be. She walked back to the kitchen and picked up the phone again. "What does Derek know about this filing?" His lawyer received a copy at the same time we did. "I need you to do nothing for 2 hours. Can you hold on this for 2 hours?" Sloan, 2 hours, Audrey." Derek called her 40 minutes later. His voice, when he spoke, carried a quality she had not heard from him in a long time, something clear and cold and absolute. "I've instructed my attorney to contact Petra's firm. If that motion is not withdrawn by 9 o'clock Monday morning, I will hand over every personal communication between myself and Petra to the SEC investigation. Every single one, including the ones she thought she'd deleted." "She'll know you're serious," Sloan said. "I am serious. My son is not a bargaining chip." A pause. He was never a bargaining chip, and I should have been clearer about that a long time ago. The motion was withdrawn by Sunday evening. The letter arrived by courier on a Wednesday morning. Sloan signed for it before she looked at the return address, a law firm she didn't recognize, based in Delaware. She opened it at the kitchen table after Miles left for school. Whitfield versus Callaway Capital Holdings, LLC, and associated entities. Notice of civil action. 12 pages. The short version, the Delaware Fund, through its legal representatives, was suing Sloan personally for $4.2 million in damages, claiming she had engaged in tortious interference with prospective business advantage by providing materials to the Financial Times and the SEC that disrupted the fund's legitimate commercial operations. She read it twice, carefully, then called Audrey. "They don't want to win," Audrey said immediately. "A suit like this against an individual in your position. They know the numbers don't hold up. What they want is to drain your finances, occupy your attention, and make continuing this fight feel more expensive than settling." "I know." "Which means they're scared." I know that too. She was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, the West Village was doing its Wednesday morning routine. The woman from 4B walking her terrier, and the dry cleaner pulling up the security gate. The FedEx truck double-parked and unconcerned. I need to be at the family court filing tomorrow, and I need money for the defense. What does that look like? Audrey gave her the number. It was not small. Sloane hung up, sat for a moment, then opened her laptop and wrote a single email to Rowan. I need to accelerate the start date at the studio. Can we sign the contract this week and advance the first month's salary? The reply came in 11 minutes. Contract ready to sign this afternoon. Advance transfers in 48 hours. And Sloane, if you need more than that, come tell me directly. No emails. She exhaled. Then her phone rang again. Audrey calling back. Voice different now. Lighter, almost surprised. You're not going to believe this. Greta Calloway just called me. Apparently she spent her morning with her personal attorney reviewing the Delaware Fund's corporate filings. They failed to register a required New York State foreign business entity disclosure when they established operations here. They literally cannot file suit in New York courts. Sloane sat perfectly still for 3 seconds. She was a corporate attorney for 30 years, she said. Apparently she still is, when motivated. The suit was dismissed on procedural grounds before the end of the week. No hearing, no motion. Just a case that ceased to exist because a retired attorney in an Upper East Side brownstone had spent one morning being thorough. They arrested her at JFK on a Tuesday morning. Gate B-17, the 745 to Zurich. 2 federal agents and 1 SEC investigator, approaching from either side as she presented her boarding pass, on the kind of approach where she would have known before they spoke. The kind where running was not an option and had perhaps never really been. Sloane did not see it happen. She heard about it from Audrey at 8:03 a.m. via text message, 3 words and a link to the AP wire. She was standing in her kitchen making coffee when her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, read it, set it back down, poured her coffee, sat at the table. In the room next to her, Miles was getting dressed, narrating his process to himself the way he always did in the morning. A running commentary on socks, the injustice of collared shirts, the relative merits of the blue backpack versus the green one. She could hear him clearly through the wall. His voice was even and unbothered and certain in the way of people who have not yet learned to be otherwise. She did not turn on the news. She did not call anyone to mark the moment. There was nothing in her that needed to perform satisfaction. The work had been done, carefully, methodically, with the help of people who had shown up when she needed them. And the consequence had arrived on its own schedule, as consequences tend to do when the foundation is laid correctly. Petra Voss was charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, and filing a materially false document with the SEC. Her Delaware fund was frozen. The 2 previous companies she had targeted, whose principals had settled quietly and said nothing, both reopened their cases within 72 hours of the arrest. She would not disappear this time. There was too much light on her now. At 9:45 a.m., Sloane was in family court. The hearing was quiet, almost procedural. Both attorneys presented. The judge read the custody agreement as submitted, jointly drafted over 3 sessions by Sloane and Derek through their respective counsel. Primary custody to Sloane. Structured visitation for Derek with a clear schedule and built-in review points. Derek signed without hesitation. He looked at Sloane once before he signed, not asking for anything. Just looking. She nodded once. He nodded back. Outside the courthouse, Audrey squeezed her arm. The October sun was sharp and low, the way it gets in New York when autumn finally means it. "How do you feel?" Audrey asked. Sloane thought about it honestly. "Ready?" she said. "For whatever's next." She almost wore the wrong dress. She had laid out 2 options on the bed the night before. A midnight blue wrap dress she'd bought for a dinner she'd never gone to, and a simple black one she'd had for 3 years and always felt most like herself in. She stood there for 30 seconds and then picked the black one without deciding. The way you make the right choice when you stop overthinking it. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was exactly what it always was. Chandeliers throwing gold light across a room full of people who built things for a living, the particular energy of architects and designers who spent their days solving problems that lasted decades. 300 guests, a projection screen above the stage displaying the event title. And beneath it, in clean modern type, Mercer plus Whitfield Studio, the Kessler Residential Project. Her name, on that screen, in that room. Sloane stood in the wings with Rowan and took a breath. "You ready?" he asked. She looked at him, and he was wearing a well-fitted charcoal suit and an expression of complete, unhurried confidence. Not confidence in the outcome. Confidence in her, as if the outcome was a detail. "Yes," she said. And she was. They presented together for 22 minutes. The kind of presentation where the room goes quiet, not because they're polite, but because they're genuinely interested. Sloane spoke about spatial memory, about the way people remember not what a room looks like, but how it feels to move through it. Rowan spoke about structural integrity and the obligation of form. The slides were clean. The photographs were beautiful. The work spoke for itself because they had let it. When it ended, the applause came before the MC could speak. Afterward, in the cocktail reception, the 3 partners from different firms handed her cards within 15 minutes. A developer she'd admired for years asked if she took on commercial consultations. Audrey materialized from somewhere, pressed a glass of sparkling water into her hand, and said quietly, "Mercer plus Whitfield. That's really what this is now, isn't it?" It wasn't quite a question. Near the entrance, Sloane saw Greta Calloway standing alone with a glass of wine, watching the room. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Greta raised her glass, almost imperceptibly. Sloane returned the gesture. On the way out, while she was collecting her coat, Rowan appeared beside her. He didn't say anything immediately, just walked alongside her toward the exit. Then, quietly, "I want to ask you something. Not tonight, but soon." "I know," Sloane said. He looked at her. "I've been waiting for you too," she said. 6 months later. The Soho studio smelled like strong coffee and drafting paper and, faintly, the cedar from the shelving unit that had arrived last week and taken Sloane and Rowan 3 hours to assemble because neither of them read instructions until it was too late to fix the first attempt. It was a Tuesday morning. The kind of unremarkable, quietly good Tuesday that people who have survived a difficult year learn to receive with both hands. Miles was at school. His room in the West Village apartment, which was no longer temporary, Sloane had signed a 2-year lease in January, was a landscape of books and plastic dinosaurs and a drawing taped to the wall that he had made for her birthday. A yellow house with a red door and 2 figures outside, one tall and one small, lost underneath a sun with too many rays. "Me and Mom," he had written underneath. With the confident, irregular letters of a child who has decided spelling will work itself out. Derek came every Saturday. He arrived on time. He brought Miles home on time. He had completed the family counseling sessions the court required and had, by all evidence, continued them voluntarily. He did not ask to come back. He did not look at Sloane the way a man looks at something he's hoping to reclaim. He looked at her the way a person looks at someone they have hurt and are learning to respect from a different distance. That was enough. It was more than she'd expected. Petra Voss accepted a plea agreement in March. 11 years. The Delaware Fund dissolved. The 3 companies she had damaged were in various stages of recovery. Her name was in the public record now, and would remain there. Neil Dunbar sent Miles a birthday card in October with a gift card to a bookstore. Miles, who had no idea who Neil Dunbar was, declared it the best present because he got to choose. Greta Calloway had dinner with Sloane and Miles on the first Sunday of every month. She taught Miles gin rummy. She was teaching him to win without gloating, a lesson she applied to most areas of life. And Rowan had asked his question 2 weeks after the gala, standing on a street corner in Soho in December with snow just beginning to fall, in the specific, unhurried way of a man who was certain enough not to perform certainty. She had said yes, not because she needed saving, not because the story required it, but because she had looked at him. This patient, perceptive man who had seen her work before he saw her circumstances, who had waited without waiting, who had shown up in the particular way that good people show up, and felt what it was like to choose something freely, without fear, without filling a vacancy. That was new. That was worth choosing. On a Tuesday morning in April, she sat at her drafting table in the Soho studio with coffee and a set of plans for a young couple's first home in Brooklyn. East-facing nursery, morning light exactly where it should be. And worked until Rowan arrived at 9 with 2 more coffees and a correction about her windowsill measurement that was, again, exactly right. Outside, the city moved. The studio was full of light. Sloane Whitfield had built something that no one could take apart. Not because it was perfect, because it was hers. And that's where Sloane's story ends. Or maybe, more accurately, where it truly begins. If you're still here with us right now, I want you to know something. That means something, because this isn't a short video. You stayed. And people don't stay for stories that don't touch something real inside them. So let's sit with this together for just a moment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Sloane didn't control what Derek did. She couldn't undo the empty chair at that birthday table. But she controlled every single choice she made after that moment. And that made all the difference. Here's what this story quietly teaches us. The most dangerous thing you can do is make yourself smaller to fit inside someone else's life. And Sloane folded away her drafting pencils, her portfolio, her name, and called it love. It wasn't. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. Healing doesn't always look like crying on the floor, though sometimes it does. And that's okay too. Sometimes healing looks like opening your laptop at 3 a.m. and writing your own name at the top of a business plan. Sometimes it looks like letting someone see your work before they see your wounds. You don't need to be rescued. You need to remember who you were before you started shrinking. If this story reached you tonight, if any part of Sloane's journey felt familiar, please hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because we tell stories like this every week, and you deserve to be here for every single one. We'll see you in the next story. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. All characters, including Sloane Whitfield, Derek Calloway, Petra Voss, Rowan Mercer, and all others appearing in this narrative, are entirely fictional and do not represent any real individuals, living or deceased. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, organizations, or locations is purely coincidental. The restaurants, law firms, companies, and institutions referenced throughout this story, including the Wren Table, Callaway Capital, Mercer Studio, and all associated locations, are used solely as fictional settings and are not intended to represent actual businesses or organizations by those names. This video does not claim to document real events. It is a dramatic narrative crafted to explore universal themes of resilience, betrayal, self-discovery, and healing. All legal, financial, and emotional situations depicted are dramatized purely for storytelling purposes and should not be taken as legal, psychological, or financial advice. We believe in honest, transparent storytelling. Thank you for watching with that understanding.